Are we streaming already? All right.
Oh, okay, shall I introduce you?
Please.
So, hello everyone, and welcome back to the second day of to the second track of the first day of GUADEC. We are going to continue with our next presentation. We had coffee and some snacks. This is the last presentation before our lunch today. So we are going to have on stage Martin Abente Lahaye, and he's going to talk about Gameeky, a new learning tool built on GNOME to develop STEAM skills. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, and thank you everyone who's watching online as well. So hopefully the audio is working good enough. So thank you for coming. I'm Martin. I'm a software engineer from Paraguay, and I've been a member of the GNOME community since a few years now. Today I'm going to talk about one of my coolest projects to date. So just a little bit, to have a bit of background about myself. Well, if you use like Flatpak or run your Foch or GNOME on your cell phones, you probably use one of my tools before. But for this particular talk, I'm using like my kind of educator hat. And without going too much into much detail, because we don't have too much time, well, basically for the last 20 years, I've been doing like this mix of making games on my own, nothing to be published, of course, more like an amateur thing, like modding games and things like that. I've been also teaching a lot and mentoring in different programs like the Google Summer of Code, Google Code-In, and other programs back in my country, and even like individuals, right? And if you ever heard about a project that it's about education and that uses GNOME, it's very likely that I was involved in that. So yeah, so basically, yeah, what I'm trying to say is that I've been having like this very specific mix of education and GNOME and teaching. So yeah, what I'm talking here is basically just a sum of all of that experiences and a tool that came out of that. So I'm not gonna explain this too much, but I think it's fairly well known that like video games are really great for education. There are many studies that go over this issue, but just to summarize it, if there's three things that you should know about this, are these three things, right? First thing is learners and teachers really enjoy this, right? Because it's fun, right? Everyone wants to play video games, and everyone enjoys like being doing that and making games. The other thing that is super important is that programming and coding, like engineering in itself, is super abstract, right? Like it's like made of these concepts that come from like physics, mathematics, and logic, right? And when you're like a kid, and then you get introduced like to loops and conditionals and variables and data structures, like that is so like crazily abstract that makes no sense to you. I know this because that was my experience. Like I have a professor at my my elementary school, and I could not make sense of any of the things he was saying because it made no sense for me because it was all like abstract concepts, right? But when you talk about like, for example, robotics and programming like video games, like suddenly everything makes sense, right? Because it's not longer like abstract loops. It's just basically your robot having to repeat a pattern of movements like 3 times, right? Or when it's no longer like an abstract matrix, it's actually the map of your video game, right? So everything makes sense. Like for example, the robot is sensing the distance with the ultrasound like sensor, and that is storing a variable, and then it clicks in your mind because okay, that's a value that's telling me like how far the robot is from an obstacle, and the variable is there because I have to put that information somewhere, right? And I can read it. So everything starts to make sense when you put context into this, right? So video games are really good for that. And the third thing is that I think this is a very common thing in probably every single human being, that we all want to be creative and we all to participate in activities that are creative. I mean, I probably like everyone here created something at one point of their lives, and they shared it with someone, and that created like this virtuous cycle of, like doing something, sharing, getting feedback, and then, repeating, right? So this is something like it's ingrained in our brains, right? We all want to create, and we all want to participate in this kind of activities. So basically, it's fun, it gives you context, and it's it fits this part of our brains that really want to be creative like all the time. And there's a lot of good tools for this. Like, I'm not gonna list the ones that I'm showing here, but all of these are great tools, right? In their own right, and they all tackle the same problem like differently, because they also target like different. They have different like target audiences. But at least in my experience, using like different like these kind of tools and different kind of tools, is that there is a problem of exposition, right? So imagine like this is like an spectrum, right? So at one side of the spectrum, you have like all these tools that throw you like directly into code with no information whatsoever, and says, if you want to know how to code, you have to code, right? Which is absolutely true, right? But I mean, that is with a huge asterisk of having like your mentor or teacher that actually like guides you through it. And then in the other side of the spectrum, you have like all these tools that make it really easy to get started, but they don't give you like a follow-up step. So you are using like all these tools, with blogs or things like that, and they are great, and you can make a lot of things with those things, but they don't give you a transition to other types of programming languages, right? Another thing that it's important to know is that probably the most popular tools to make games are not necessarily the best for education, because those are tools for productivity, right? Those are tool designs for game developers to get a product to the market as soon as possible, right? And education doesn't really work like that. Education is like, it's messy, it's slow, it's chaotic. There are so many things that are important in a learning process that makes no sense when you're building, like a game engine for professionals, right? So having like these things in mind, plus these orthogonals, like not many of these tools are open source. There are many open source tools, but not as many as I wish. Also, like, this is maybe too anecdotal for me, but everyone says that one of the best programming languages to get started is Python, but then in practice, like, people go and use other programming languages because it doesn't work well for the web or this or that, right? And then it's kind of, okay, there's not a lot of Python-based tools for learning and making games and things like that. And the third one is that there's not a lot of these in GNOME. I mean, there's not a lot of games in GNOME. There are a few, but there's not a lot. And yeah, those are also some orthogonal problems to this. So here's my proposal. How about creating a tool that helps to learn these skills, while you become a creator, but in a way that is more subtle, in like very small steps, right? And that's why I created this tool called Gameeky, and it's basically a tool to create games and learning experiences that can be shared. It's free and open source, and it's built like 99% on top of GNOME technologies. So it literally like uses like everything almost everything in the GNOME stack. And okay, so step number one should be like the most simple one. So if you want to use video games to engage with young learners and have them and use this as a step in the ladder to become an engineer or a programmer or an artist or whatever, it has to be very simple. So yeah, so let's just play games, right? Like, just have fun. That should be like the first step, right? So in Gameeky, what I built is just a few like demo games. I actually call them like thematic packs, right? So I will explain that I will explain that better in a few minutes. But basically, yeah, this is Gameeky. Like, you can get it from FlapHub. Yes, you can download it from FlapHub. But I recommended getting from GNOME Software because from GNOME Software you can also install like all these games that I built with Gameeky as thematic packs. So you can see here that you can install them, right? So once those are installed, then you can launch the Gameeky, right? And you will see like all the different games that you have. So let me show you a few games that I built using this tool. The first one is very, very simple. It's just a clone of a very popular game, right? It's nothing too complex, right? But yeah, it's just a very simple game, and it has a very clear goal. And yeah, that is one of the games. And now I'll show you like what I consider like the tech demo for Gameeky. So I don't know if anyone here has played Harvest Moon in the Nintendo or like Stardew Valley. Okay, so I basically built using Gameeky like a mini clone of those games. It's just like a classic farming RPG. So you are this girl called Emma, and for whatever reason, your parents just left you with all the responsibilities to, take care of the farm, right? So you basically, this is your farm, those are your animals, and you basically have like just one job, right? You have to keep them alive. That's all you need to do. But of course, you have to feed them, and to feed them, you have to grow, actual like vegetables. But they are picky, so. For example, the chicken only eats a particular type of food, and then the pig eats something else, and then you have a third one, which is, I don't know, maybe lost somewhere in the island. But there's another problem, that these animals, they have their natural predators, right? So you also have to be careful of those predators. And for that, you have to build like infrastructure to take care of them. So you, for example, you can chop the trees to make wood, and from that wood you can make fences, and then you start like building your infrastructure, right? Your farm infrastructure to take care of your animals. So yeah, I'm not gonna go like too much into deep, but it's like a small game, but it's it's a rich game, right? It's fun. So, but really, the goal of this project is not really to like build the ultimate game engine. So you can build your $1 million game, and it's that's not the goal. The goal of Gameeky is just having like some sort of a tool that both teachers and learners can use to to learn about some of these concepts, right? But in a very subtle way. So when I say subtle, I mean exactly this. So basically, I just show you that you can play games with Gameeky, and of course, that's like the first step, right? But the second step is when you start like creating things, and this is where it gets like more interesting, right? So, and this has like 2 layers, right? In my mind, right? What happens is that when you start with all these tools that teach you to learn programming and make games, I think they sometimes tend to not mention that learning to code is actually hard. It's really not easy, right? And so my idea here is like I want to provide a tool that where you can be creative, but without being exposed to too much crazy details or knowledge, right? So this is like the first, the second step, and the most simple layer, which is basically just like an artistic experience, right? So I will explain this better now. So these are the thematic packs that I have, right? I call it thematic packs because they are basically just collection of objects with predefined behaviors that you can mix to make games, right? And they are thematic because you have like this Whackman, knockoff, and then you have my Freedom Valley game. So let's make a clone of the Freedom Valley. Okay, let me close that, and let me give you a better name. So it's gonna be called Small Dungeons, right? And this is let's give a good description. So it's gonna be GUADEC demo. Perfect. Super not confusing. All right, so now I'm gonna edit this. Of course, because I made a copy of Freedom Valley, what it's loading now is the default map of Freedom Valley, right? What we see here is the scene editor, right? Like the map editor, if you want to call it like that. And as you can see, this is everything that I didn't show, right? So this is where you start. Then if you use the door, you get teleported to here, and this is like the complete map, right? That you can build with this tool. Yeah, let's make something much simpler, so we can all like understand what's going on. So let me call it default. The Gameeky has like dynamic daytime, like you can go from day to night. Let's keep that, but let's make it like shorter, and let's make a very small map just for the sake of this exercise. Yeah, it's just loading like a lot of the. Okay, so basically this is the map editor again. I can edit things like by different layers. So I will use the layer number 0 because I want to work with the terrain. So let me find for dirt. And my brush, I want to make it like bigger. And I want to have some boundaries here. So let's find some rocks. I think this is a sufficiently good one. Okay, so yeah, let's change to the dynamic layer like mode. So let me put some boundaries here in this map. And that's it. And let's put some in the middle. All right, let's put more things in this map. Let me put like the starting point for the player, and let me add like a monster or something, like a goblin. Yes, and because it can be night or day depending like on my internal clock, then let's put some light sources like here, here, and here. All right, so let's save this. Let's override the official one. Let me do this for a second, and let's give it a try. So I just made my first. Okay. No, let's add some music because this is kind of lame. So let's find some music. Song. Okay, yeah. Dangerous song. I like the name of that. I will put the song there. Let me save it. And I don't know if you can hear it, but now I have like a proper music for this scene, right? So there's the goblin, he's searching for me. So if I get close to it, it's not gonna do anything because it doesn't have like anything to hurt me. I mean, but let me give it a tool, right? So let's give it an axe. So if I put an axe in here, and then I save it. Okay, now reload. Yeah, now it has something to hurt me. So if I get too close, it's gonna hurt me, right? Okay, but basically, that's too bad. That's too bad. All right, so going back to the editor. So this is what I call like an artistic approach to creating games, right? Because this is probably more similar to like using a like GIMP, right? So you have a canvas and you're painting the canvas with objects that come with predefined behaviors, right? So as you can see, like there was the dirt. I don't know if you noticed, but these lights, these campfires, they produce like light, right? They emit light. And this goblin, it has like all the behaviors for chasing, like looking for targets, chasing, attacking, and so on, right? But the interesting thing about this is that everything in Gameeky, it's an entity. Like there's literally like no difference between the rocks, the dirt, the player, the weapon, and the goblin. They are exactly the same, and these entities are composed of some properties, right? So depending on how you mix those properties, you can model a goblin or you can model the dirt. So that is like the next step, right? So at this point, you can create a lot of games with this, right, by just reusing these thematic packs. But the next level is understanding like how these entities work, right? And this is kind of interesting because this is called like systemic thinking, right? Because underneath there is a system that operates over these entities and their properties, and from there, behaviors emerge, right? The games emerge from how you configure these entities. So let's look at the Goblin like in detail, just to understand like what is an entity. Right? So I'm gonna edit this, and this is like the not surprisingly, it's called Entity Editor, and basically it has like 3 pillars, right? One is basically just these properties that the entity engine uses to emerge all of these behaviors. I'm not gonna go like in deeper of all these. It's not a lot. It's relatively few properties, right? But I'm just gonna focus for the sake of time. I'm gonna focus on basically just 3. The actuators is basically just a collection of predefined behaviors that you can assign to an entity. Like for example, grass or the dirt, they have no behavior whatsoever, so this will be empty, right? But for something complex like the goblins, you can see that it roams, like it moves randomly. It can aggro, I mean, it's looking for targets. If it has a target, it's gonna follow it. If it finds something that can be used as a weapon, it will take it. And if it has it on the hand, it's gonna use it, right? And it can be destroyed, right? So this is all the behaviors that I gave to this goblin. The other important properties are the state. So basically an entity has a state and it can move between states depending on what's going on in the game, right? Or the actions that are applied to these entities. So for example, like the default one is just idling, it's just there doing nothing, but it can be like moving or taking things or being destroyed, etc. And the other one is direction, right? I explained these two because it's helpful to understand the next part. So basically we have an entity which can have a graphical representation, right? So in this case, because these entities, they have combinations of states and directions, you can create animations and assign those animations to those combinations of state and direction, right? So basically, let me find some animation that is good to show. Basically, yeah, let me find the moving west. So basically, when this entity is moving west, it's gonna use this animation, right? And the way you create these animations in Gameeky, Gameeky lets you use like any like standard like sprite, like tile sheet. And yeah, this is some assets that obviously I did not draw this. That's not my thing, but thankfully for the Martins out there, there's a lot of good resources like opengameart.org, and they are all like GPL assets that you can use. They are really good. So basically, let me explain like how this animation works. So basically, as you can see, like all these sprites are enumerated, right? So I can say, okay, for this particular combination of state and direction, I want these the first frame to be 117. So if you look, yeah, it's this one, right? So it's this one, 117, and the last one is gonna be 125. So I'm basically just defining like what are the frames that compose this animation, and then I can do a lot of transformation. For example, like how long the animation should last. So if I make it like longer, it's gonna be slower. If I give it less time, it's gonna be faster, right? The animation itself. And then I have like transformations to, like make it bigger or like flipping it or like rotating it, etc. But basically Gameeky gives you like these very basic but powerful tools to just create like these different objects and animate them. And the same thing about the sounds, right? But the sounds are a little bit simpler because it only operates on the states. So you're basically saying when this entity is like moving, right, then use this sound, right? Like for example here, like when this goblin entity is moving, I can basically just assign a sequence of different files, and that's gonna be basically why it's played, when that entity is on that particular state. So for example, right, that's the that's the sequence when the goblins move, right? And let's see another one, like for example. Okay, when it's using things, yeah, it's kind of similar, right? But that's the sound like when it's using something. But I don't know if then when if we have time for questions, then you can ask me more. But the idea is very simple, right? So entities, they have states, and then you can start like giving it specific animations and sound for these different states, right? And that's how you basically do this, basically without coding, but not without thinking, right? Because understanding how all these properties can be used to model a specific behavior is really like a work of trial and error. Like even for myself who created this, like I don't even know like what are all the possible combinations that can come out of this. So you still have to think, but it's not like you're not writing like algorithms. You are basically using like systemic thinking to operate here. So basically that's like the initial like two-layer approach for like for starting to create something with Gameeky, right? And as you can see, it's initially more of an artistic activity, but then you have to start thinking about like the systems and the properties and see how to model those things with that very limited amount of behaviors and properties. All right, so another thing that is important to notice is that, of course, all of these objects come with predefined behaviors, but you can I can override these things for one particular entity, right? So I put this goblin here, but I can just go here and override those for this particular object, right, entity, and I can remove absolutely everything. And then if I try it, the goblin is not gonna do anything because it's just gonna be there like nothing because I removed all the behavior. So I can take these entities and then I can modify them a little bit instance by instance, right? Okay, but now comes the most probably the coolest part of Gameeky is that, and let me go to the presentation just to have my memory. So better with company, right? So when you create something, one of the coolest things about creating something is to share that something, right? So Gameeky actually has two things regarding this. One is you can basically export your creations, right? I can export my creation. It's going to create like a bundle file where everything that needs to be there for this game to be shared with someone is going to be there, and then someone else can just import it, right? And that's very nice, but that's very basic. But there's one thing that it's even cooler than just seeing someone experiencing your creation. The only thing that is better than that is experiencing your creation with that other person, right? So what Gameeky does is that by design, everything you create with Gameeky is multiplayer by default. So basically, let's go here. Let's play this game. Let me put this window here. Now let me create a new session and let me allow one more player. Then if someone else comes, they can join my session. So now, basically, I can create something that I can not only share with somebody else, but I can experience with someone else. Well, I mean, you can experience with as much RAM and CPU you have, right? But there's no hard code for how many cooperators you can have, right? Yeah. So let me see one more thing. Let me remove the music for a little bit because it's kind of loud. But yeah, let me show you something more. And the fact that you can create things that you can have cooperators, right? It opens the door for a next idea, right? So if you can have human cooperators, thank you, why not having code cooperators, right? So let me show you the same example again, but just a little bit different. So I'm going to play this again, hopefully without the music. Perfect. Just a campfire sound, very relaxing. Let me create another session. And now let me join the game, like somebody else can join my game, but with code, right? So join with code. And I have like this built-in editor, right? And let me literally copy-paste something from the documentation. So okay, this. Let me copy this. This is just an example. So what Gameeky provides is I don't know if you're familiar with the Logo programming language, but this like a programming language where you control this turtle. This turtle can move and do like drawings, right? But the idea is that, I mean, the API level of that is like you can move forward, you can turn left, you can draw, you can do certain things. So basically, Gameeky gives you like this very simple Python API to control these cooperators, right? So if I now join this with my code, it will do that. So it's joining the session. It's just doing nothing for 1 second. Then it moves to the east for 1 second, moves to the west for 1 second, takes whatever is in front of it. In this particular case, it was me, right? So that's why my character was like this, doing this animation of floating, right? And then it's just gonna use it. It cannot use other players, but anyway, then it drops me, and then do something else, and then it quits, right? But basically, this is like real Python code, but it's limited to controlling only one entity, right? Your entity, your player, right? And this is like super powerful because there's a lot of things that you can do already with this, right? For example, like if you're a teacher and you're teaching like Python and you want to teach like specific like concepts, then you can use Gameeky to create a scenario where that concept makes sense. Like for example, I don't know, you want to have like conditionals, right? And then you can create like this map where the kids have to write the code to basically go from point A to point B, and they have to literally write the code to evade the obstacle and get to the point, right? That's like a very silly and super simple idea, but I think you get the point, right? So you can basically create scenarios and then use those scenarios to teach specific things, right? And then use Python, like real Python, to control your entities. Or, this is the best part, so many years ago I created with some friends a project, it's called Roddy. It's like a very small, low-cost like robot for teaching programming. Oh, okay, not good. Yeah, and one of the coolest things that I saw people doing with it is this like sumo competitions, right? So they draw this line and they use the sensors for the line followers, right? So they don't go outside of the arena, right? And basically one of the robots has to push the other robot outside of the circle, right? But imagine what you can do with Gameeky. So you can take like that idea and then like go overboard. Like you can basically create like your own like Roman Colosseum and put like lions and fire and like holes and everything that you can imagine. And then you can have like your students join all of your students can join like this session and they have to compete, right? But it's interesting because it can be a competition or it can be like a collaboration session. You can have like NPCs like those goblins and they have to fight them, for example, right? So this kind of opens the door for many different like learning experience. All right, so let me show you one more thing that you can do. So what I showed so far is that you can play games, you can create games without coding, you can customize the behavior of these objects that compose these games by just turning some switches and adding animations and sounds. And you can actually use these to learn some Python basics and give this tool to teachers so they can create content like that is tailored to their students and the content they want to teach. But there's one more thing, of course. This is all very limited. So when I was showing this scenario, right? Let's see, like the goblin again. Like all these actuators, or the behaviors that you can assign, they are fixed. They are hard-coded. They come with Gameeky, right? So they are very, very limiting. I mean, I don't know, maybe there's like 30, and you can emerge a lot of interesting things with those 30s, but there's always something you cannot do, right? So basically what you can do is you can create plugins. So basically, you can create your own actuators for Gameeky. So let me show you this one. So let me save this one. I already created this one, yeah. But what this actuator does is basically, if the entity finds an obstacle, it's gonna switch the direction to the opposite direction. That's all it's gonna do, right? So let me save this in a particular place. So here's my game, Small Dungeons. There's this directory called like actuators, and I can save it here, right? The editor already noticed that I have something new there. And now if I edit like this particular goblin, I can edit this one. And first, let me give it some behavior for propulsors. Propulsors is just basically an actuator that moves something in whatever direction it is. Like it's gonna go forward, right, no matter the direction. But now that I added that plugin, now I can mix that propulsors with my other actuator, which whenever the entity finds a obstacle, it's just gonna flip the direction, right? So let's see how that works. Let me save this and try it. So basically you can see there that I wrote this new actuator. Yeah, super annoying, right? But anyway, so actuators can not only control like what one entity does, but they can also control the whole scene. So for example, you can use these plugins to write like a specific like end conditions like for the games. Like for example, are you creating a game? I don't know. And you win if all of these types of entities disappear or whatever, right? So you can write plugins for controlling one entity or the whole scene. So you basically can like create more complex games with this. Yeah, that's basically almost all of it. So yeah, plugins with Python, and then engine with Python, because of course, this tool is written with Python in GTK, so, and it's open source, so anyone, like, if all of the things that I show are super limiting for someone, then they can just go and hack the tool itself, because it's open source and it's written in Python, and I put a lot of love, so the code is very, very readable. So yeah, that's the last frontier, right? Let me see. So we're almost out of time. So basically, that was it. What's next? I wrote a very nice documentation, which actually is translated into Portuguese and some Spanish and some other languages. There's some accessibility things that I need to fix. For example, the scene editor doesn't have like undo or redo, and it's super annoying because sometimes you make mistakes and then you have to like something again. Like, yeah, very basic, and then optimize a lot of things. But yeah, there's a lot of things, and especially like creating more like video tutorials and edtech kits. So like that's probably the most important thing that's missing is like if you give this tool to someone, but there's no like a guide for how to use it, is going to be completely worthless, right? So I'm really like trying to find the time of the people to actually create like these contents for learning, for example, for teaching like basic Python, for example, right? And then create some material so this tool can become actually useful. And lastly, some acknowledgments. Yeah, Rafael Fontanel. He did not only translated like everything, like the documentation and the UI to Brazilian Portuguese, but he also designed like the whole like strategy for how we will translate the documentation more easily, and that made it so easy that we started receiving like other translations like for like Hindi and Spanish and so on. And by the way, yeah. So thanks to Scramble, Hyman, and Patricia, which happens to be my wife, so she translated it to Spanish. Thanks to Tobias and Jacob for the amazing icon that they designed. Yeah, this one that you can see there. And yeah, of course, thank you for Open Game Art and Kenny and Elle, because they provide these amazing, open source assets to make games. So it's amazing, like all the things you can do. And lastly, yeah, my employer, CodeThink, for sponsoring my trip to GUADEC, so I can share this with you. So, any questions? Yes.
You can repeat it.
Oh.
So, very cool. I was curious if you could talk a little bit more about the sharing. Is there a server somewhere? Or
Yes. It's an old school. Oh, yes, yeah. So he's asking about the architecture, like a server client architecture. This is just like old school games. Like whoever creates the game session is the server, and the others joins.
was this on the sort of local network sharing?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's almost intentional, the fact that this is more a LAN party experience, right? It's not like a service, and I'm not interested in collecting data or like selling the that is a kind of a sensitive topic. So I designed this to be like a old school LAN party experience, right? Yeah. Any other question? Yes.
Do the actual characters count as obstacles?
Yes.
So like if you stepped into the path of the battle, it would hit you.
Yeah.
In the fast path.
Yes. Yes. I could have like made it shorter. Like I could just move myself and then have it bounce like in a very small place, right? Everything is an entity, so like all the rules, the same rules applies for everything in the scene. Yes.
I guess, have you tried this with kids? And
Yes. Yeah.
Does it work for?
Oh yeah. He asked if I tried this with kids. Yes. I mean, I haven't done like very large experiments, but I have done like with small groups, right? And in one particular experience, it was very like crazy because he said, "I want to play as a rock. I want my hero to be a rock." Right? And then like I hacked like very fast these things. So now like when you create a session or join a session, you can specify the ID of the entity, right? But it's kind of funny because if you select a rock as it is, then you can do nothing, right? Because it's but yeah, beware with what you ask, right? But yeah, I did it and I learned a lot of things, but I'm still like in this phase of like making this tool like being known and doing these small experiments, but nothing at the large scale or anything. Anything else? Okay, and I don't know, if anyone is interested in this, then we can crash one of the empty rooms when the workshop days come. We can just crash one of those and we can make games or something, right? So thank you everyone for coming and attending online.
Thank you, Martin, for amazing demo. We now have 1 hour lunch break, and we'll have our next talk at 5 p.m. So, yeah. Thank you.